Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll get started on our conversation here, and also continuing on a theme on water, this time focused on innovation and economic advancement. My name is Brandon Karras. I'm a senior partner and managing partner for McKinsey, Ohio, and I'll start off with some introductions for our feature speakers here today. First, Director Brian Baldridge. Brian, thank you for joining us. Brian is the 40th Director of the Ohio Department of Agriculture, supporting the state's $124 billion industry. You're a lifelong Southern Ohio native, and you have a track record of impact in public service at both the local and state level, including being a first responder. Thank you for that. And if I understand correctly, you're also a seventh-generation farmer from Ohio. Wow. And you have an active livestock and crop operation as we speak. Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you for being here, Brian. I'm looking forward to your insights. President Rodney Rogers, welcome. Thank you. Also an Ohio native. Rodney is a Bowling Green State University alum, and you serve as the 12th president of Bowling Green since 2018. You have a background that includes a PhD from Case Western Reserve and over a decade as a CPA, which is a unique blend of both academic and professional leadership experience. And your leadership has been marked by the establishment of new academic programs, record-breaking fundraising efforts, and a focus on student success through efforts like Life Design. Under your leadership, Bowling Green State University has achieved historic highs in enrollment and graduation rates, as well as national rankings. Congratulations, and thank you as well for joining us. So Rodney and Brian, we'll start off with a question maybe around setting the baseline. If you could give us your thoughts on why water is such a critical factor for economic resilience, and then also how is Ohio positioning itself as a leader in water innovation?
Sure. Well, thanks so much. Glad to be with you. What a great topic. I serving in this role for about 2.5 years and talking a lot about water quality and what's going on. I'd love to say from the agricultural community, clean water, and healthy soils are part of our business model. We love what's going on with the initiative following leadership of Governor DeWine. There's a bright future ahead as we've worked so hard on our water quality issues. And using a science-based, mission-driven mindset to really look at how we can do it better, look into the future, and making sure that we pass it along to the next generation better than we found it. So a lot of work is going on, and great to be here to talk about water quality.
Thank you, Rodney.
And it's a pleasure to be here as well. What he read about my background has nothing to do with water, so you're asking why is he here? But I am at a university that our mantra is public university for the public good. So our research is very much focused on relevant, meaningful kind of issues that Ohioans are dealing with each and every day. When I think about water, I think of a couple of things. I think of we are in Northwest Ohio, nestled up there in Northwest Ohio near Lake Erie, near the Maumee River. And I begin to think of the 11 million people that Lake Erie kind of supports in terms of drinking water. 3 million of those are Ohioans, is my understanding. We think about the impact on tourism, the amount of tourism that goes across the northern coast of Ohio, and the economic impact and all those jobs that are created there that support tourism. I think about agriculture. I grew up in an ag area and worked on dairy farms growing up. It taught me a lot of hard work and those sorts of lessons, but understanding how important what kind of water is to ag. And the Lake Erie watershed is one of the most productive ag watersheds in the country, is my understanding. And it's a variety of farms, large, small, a lot of different types of farms across there. I also think of the shipping lanes, right, that go on across Lake Erie and the impact of making sure that the water supports that. And then finally, mentioned earlier, the opening of the Meta data center just north of Bowling Green, the Bowling Green data center. And my understanding is 600,000 gallons of water a day is used for cooling. Now, a lot of that's going to be recycled, but still, you begin to think of the impact of water in so many ways. And that's why it's so important to Ohio.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Maybe, Brian, a question for you. Since its launch, H2O Ohio has been a leader not only for the state in policy and economic development, but also a role model across the country and maybe even beyond. Maybe tell us a bit about the measurable impacts that H2 Ohio has had on agricultural practices and water quality, and what have you done specifically to engage both the farmer and the ag community as well as the rest of the private sector?
Well, sure, and thank you for that. And from a standpoint for me, I came out of the state legislature, and I was a freshman legislator in the beginning of 2019, and I was on the subcommittee of finance with an ag-based focus. And that's where we got the executive budget from the governor to the start of H2 Ohio. So now to shift from the legislative side and the policy side of it to be on the operational side, it's pretty amazing for me to see the work that's been done and really appreciate all the collaboration. But as we look at our agricultural side of H2 Ohio and the participation from our ag community, realizing that we have 3,200 producers signed up producing, realizing that in the Western Lake Erie Basin, we have about 2.2 million acres. If you're in Northwest Ohio, think about, I'm going to round up just a little bit because I do have the microphone and I can, because it's about 43%. But I like to say 1 out of every 2 fields, when you're driving through the Western Lake Erie Basin in those 24 counties, 1 out of every 2 fields are participating in H2 Ohio. So what a great program. And then we were able to say, let's expand that statewide. If best practices, water quality practices are good for Northwest Ohio, we need to be doing that statewide. So realizing that we can talk about, for sure, knowing how much decrease in the sales of phosphorus have went on in the Western Lake Erie Basin. Those are numbers that come into the Department of Agriculture. So we know for a fact we are putting on less nutrients. And using that expertise that we have learned, making sure our farmers are using the incentivized dollars to change the way they're doing business. Buying that technology. I've heard a lot of conversations about technology and where we're going in the future with technology. But being able to afford that equipment, to do it better, smarter, make sure we're placing the exact amounts of nutrients exactly where we need them, so that plant uptakes that nutrient, and we harvest and take that nutrient with us when we leave our fields. So our numbers, as far as really foundational numbers, we estimate we've removed about 230,000 pounds of phosphorus. And then that's for 23 numbers, and we're very close to releasing, and again, I have the microphone, I can say we're projecting about 420,000 pounds of phosphorus estimations that we have removed from the agricultural community.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit more about what H2 Ohio actually does with the farmers and the ag companies. What are we providing? What incentives? What techniques and technologies?
Yeah, and basically we want to make sure that that farmer, it's that basic fundamental voluntary nutrient management plan. So the farmers are actually going out, we are pulling grid samples. So going across our fields, we're pulling those samples. And then we're shifting that information into our equipment, into the technology side of it. So think about when we're applying a nutrient, when we can inject it, that's even better. But as we go across our fields and our farm fields, those different levels of nutrients that's needed is read all the way across the field. So we're putting on this part of the field, need a little bit more. Through the middle of the field, a lot less. And then the other side, we're short. We need to put some more nutrient on. So we're doing variable rates. As a farm kid, we put on, and this is, I'm getting in, but 160 pounds of nitrogen, 60 of phosphorus, and 60 of potash. That's a normal way we did it. Why did we do it? I did it because Dad did it. Right? So now if we don't need any phosphorus on that field, we are not putting it on. So using the incentivized dollars in the H2 Ohio program to change the business models of farmers.
Fantastic. President Rogers, let's switch to the research and innovation side. I didn't know this, but Bowling Green has one of the nation's largest and most preeminent water research laboratories, Center for Great Lakes and Watershed Studies. Tell us a little bit about what you and your team has been doing to lead in water research, and how are you using those resources to create scalable solutions for Ohio and the country?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I want to start by thanking, H2 Ohio has certainly been one of the funding agencies as well as federal on a lot of this work. But the work is a systems approach to this issue. Ag is an issue to consider in the water, but there is so much more, and it's important that we think of it systemically. So we've got about 18 faculty in their labs working on issues around water, from the watershed all the way out into Lake Erie. And they come from 5 different academic disciplines, so we've tried to take a very broad kind of perspective on this issue. We partner deeply with Ohio State on Stone Lab, and I know President Carter's here today, with the University of Toledo. We each focus kind of on different areas of the area. Bowling Green, we're focusing on watershed issues, about monitoring the watershed. For us, it's the Maumee River that flows into the Western Basin. University of Toledo's focusing on the mouth of the Maumee and the far Western Basin, the open water and the islands, Ohio State through their Stone Lab, and then we do work in the Sandusky Bay. And so all of that is the monitoring, but we are also working on trying to find solutions too. I think in higher ed often we study, and we're short on trying to actually find solutions. So I think all of us are trying to push our teams to say, okay, what are some of those solutions and what do those look like? How do we leverage that knowledge that we have? So that's...
Would you want to expand on that? Maybe
I'm happy, because I did, it's a show and tell time, right? Shouldn't everybody bring something to show? So I had a chance, obviously, I'm not a water expert, but I had a chance to meet with about 9 of our faculty who spent about an hour and a half trying to coach me up a little bit on the work that they're doing. And it really is fascinating because we're a small enough university where all these people talk. We're big enough to have some pretty amazing scholars and scientists. But these hydrogels have been developed, and these hydrogels, through our photochemistry program, they have found a way to capture, these gels capture the phosphates from wastewater into the gels. The gels can be harvested then off of the wastewater, and those gels then can be spread on farmlands, and they're slow release. So the light begins to degrade these very slowly. You don't need full light for the slow release. So they're working on trying to scale this. It works certainly in the lab and on some of the fields that we've tested it on in Northwest Ohio, but we're working to scale kind of this product. And so that's one example of the kind of pragmatic, practical research that I think is going on at many of the public universities in Ohio and the private universities as well. But that's one example.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's fascinating. When I heard about this one, it's truly remarkable in the way that you're avoiding the phosphorus runoff, you're avoiding the algae bloom problem, and you're creating a win-win solution for both the community as well as the private sector, who now need avoidance of having to invest in the cleanup activities.
They've assured me this is not wastewater in here. This is the solution to suspend the gels. Okay, so I don't want anyone to think I'm carrying around wastewater. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Fantastic. Director Balgers, back to you. Let's talk a little bit about public-private partnership, and in particular with the business community in the room. So as you look ahead towards the next generation of innovation for water stewardship, what are the best opportunities for business involvement?
Well, and thank you. And from a standpoint, when I came in the role 2.5 years ago, my initial immediately, the Ohio Department of Agriculture, we fall into a lot of food safety areas. So we get into the regulatory space pretty heavily, but we're not going to give up food safety, quality, and so forth for Ohioans and across the country. But from a public-private partnership, that was my key message. We are in a partnership with the private sector, and it should work together to navigate through that. So I really appreciate any opportunities that we have. As you look at H2 Ohio, to sit here and think that legislative general revenue funds are going to be in place forever, probably not going to happen. So how do we continue to engage the agricultural community from an incentivized program? And I think it's the opportunity from the private-public partnerships to realizing those producers, those farmers who are doing those best practices can get extra cents on top and part of their marketing strategy. The farmers, we're price takers. So anything that we can do to improve our bottom line, I think there's a huge opportunity there. And I think the private sector industry wants to be part of that solution. So I think there's a great opportunity for more public-private partnerships. What we've done from a retailer standpoint, our retailer folks who are selling our fertilizers, they're heavily engaged with H2 Ohio. And we were able to engage them and incentivize them a little bit to really take some of the time they're spending with our producers through the H2 Ohio program and engage them a little bit too. So again, another one of those private-public partnerships. Together, we succeed.
President Rogers, similar question for you as a leader of a university who is recently, we're all going through a tremendous amount of external pressure, particularly around federally funded research and the like. How do you think about the future of innovation within water in terms of the opportunities it presents for private sector collaboration?
Yeah, I've often made the argument that it feels to me that Ohio is not fully leveraging the public universities and the independent universities we have, the research universities we have in the state. And at times it's partially because universities are not easy to interact with. So we are working hard, and I think all of us in the public universities especially are working hard to make sure that we're easier to work with. That if there are issues and challenges you're trying to deal with, how do we bring some talented people to address that issue? And obviously work through IP issues and NDAs and all of those sorts of things. But we have some incredibly talented faculty members and graduate students who are working, that they want to do relevant, meaningful work that moves our state forward, moves our country and the world forward. So we've got to do a better job on these partnerships. And at Bowling Green, we have tried to through a variety of different kind of partnerships in spaces outside of water, certainly everything from our aviation, School of Aviation, to our School of Resort and Attraction Management with the Six Flags partnership, to the things we're doing in healthcare. But in this water space, I think there is so much more we need to be doing, and we need to really make it a three-way partnership. Director Baldridge and his leadership in ag and other agencies within the state of Ohio and at the federal level, of course, but corporate and public university. How do we work together to find those win-win situations? Because we are looking for relevant, meaningful solutions to problems. People want to work on those things.
That's fantastic. And it's energizing too, right? It goes back to what Pat kicked off the day with, which is, Ohio, it's a great time to be in Ohio. Ohio's on the move. We have not only a tremendous set of assets, physical assets like the water and whatnot, but we have assets in higher education, and we have the ability to create real applied research like the thing in your pocket that is going to change the curve, bend the curve in terms of economics for the private sector leaders sitting in the room. And it's a win-win for the researchers, it's a win-win for the private sector, and then we have also a great track record going back decades of public-private partnership in the state. Now, it doesn't always work perfectly, but when it does, it works beautifully, and this is, I think, an emerging example of that, where continuing to draw the circle around private sector leadership and involvement, setting the charge, and collaborating with both public sector and research sector, I think is a great opportunity for the state as well. With that in mind, any final thoughts for maybe asks of the business community in the room in terms of how we can collectively engage, whether it's on policy, technology, sustainability practices? We haven't talked much about workforce in this space, but it's also relevant. Any final themes you'd like to share in terms of how we should collaborate going forward?
Sure. Real quick on workforce, as we look at that fundamental ag side of things that are based at, I was at the FFA convention, and to think about those 30,000 young people, they're engaged. Yes, future farmers of America, but there's a lot of those are going to go into your workplaces, and those fundamental values that they're learning each and every day is exciting. Same way with the 4-H programs, the OSU Extension, and so forth. But really, that partnership, and Pat mentioned it, the relationships between you as business folks. I say it just a little differently as a former legislator. Building those relationships before issues. So all of you folks and the relationships that you have with legislators, your voice matters when it comes to that. Obviously, it was mentioned, we're giving testimony tomorrow, and there's a lot of talk about, the House version, and it's halftime. We're through the budgetary process. But, there was a big cut to H2 Ohio. I think the governor said it best when we had USDA Secretary of Agriculture Rollins in Ohio last week, and he was asked about it. He said, we have come too far in 6 years of his administration to change direction now. So, those opportunities, if you have those opportunities to say that we're so fortunate in Ohio to talk about water quantity. If we were out west, or quality. If we were out west in some of our Wyoming western states, we would be talking about quantity. So, we want to keep the foot pedal on the gas and keep moving forward with all the great things we're doing when it comes to water quality.
Thank you.
Yeah, great point about having lived in the West for a while and before coming back to Ohio. So I appreciate the comment on the water quality. Maybe I'll just pick up on the talent piece. I think universities, I'll speak from my perspective, it's important that we're also educating students that understand where their career opportunities are kind of in this space. The next part of the program today is about people and talent, right? And I think that's the piece that we also think about. How are we making sure students are aware of, whether they be undergrad or graduate students, are aware of where these opportunities may be in ag. We're working on a career accelerator in an ag business. Cooper Farms has been a great partner on that, and the Andersons and some other ag-based companies. But what we're trying to do is let that talent understand where the career opportunities are. And so we're looking for any way that we can build relationships and partnerships. We are a public university, and the taxpayers, do we have any taxpayers here? Oh, yeah. You're helping support, and I see Miami University here as well, and Ohio State, but we've got 14 great public institutions, and what are we doing to really fully leverage it? Because we stand ready to partner.
Fantastic. It is I would go so far as to say a right to win that Ohio has in this particular sector, right? We've talked about Ohio has a handful of these next economies where we can really, not only as an enabler to our existing growth, but we can, with combination of the fantastic efforts going on in the research side across all the universities you mentioned, strong and I dare I say aligned private sector, and then a collaboration with the public sector initiatives that you talked about, Director. I think it creates a platform where we have the right to win if we want to win. Mm-hmm. And I'd look forward to seeing how the future pans out here. Thank you both for your great comments and insights, and thank you for listening. Cheers.
Thank you.